Just breathe. We're back.
We are. We're back.
It's been a crazy summer.
It has. Has it been a crazy? Has it been a wet, hot American summer? That's what I want to know.
Yeah, not for me.
Not really either. What I love about this is we're actually back and we're still drinking another beer.
Yeah.
I think we should do this every time, every show, different beer.
I'm fine with that. This is actually a root beer.
Right, but it's alcoholic.
It is alcoholic. It's called Not Your Father's Root Beer. It's very good. It was hard to find. I think the New York Times did an article on it.
Did they really?
You couldn't find it anywhere.
I just found it today.
Yeah, it's.
I'm awesome.
Yeah, it's great.
This is
we're also in a new studio.
Yeah,
which is cool.
Well, AKA my dining room.
You got a new house.
It's still my dining room.
It's still your dining room.
It's like teleported. 40 feet to the left or something.
Right. Brand new studio. It's been an eventful summer.
Is it? Well, you had a baby.
I have a new baby.
You have
a
new baby. We have a new place.
I have a new baby. You have a new house.
Our lives are different, man.
It's crazy, man.
Who are
Remember
we?
when we used to do this?
Who are we, man?
When
Back
we were
in
young
the day.
and starry-eyed.
Sowing our oats.
What?
Yeah, you're right. No oats were involved.
Hey, before we get started, we have some exciting news.
Oh, we really do. This is actually legitimately exciting.
We are going to be on a panel,
both of us,
at an actual conference together, talking about 360-degree emergency management. It's the Special Libraries Association conference. If you're in New York, you can come to it. It's pretty cheap to go to.
Yep.
Just Google Special Libraries Association conference. And it'll come up. The registration information is all there. It's next Friday, September 25th.
Right, and we're on at like 9 in the morning, right?
Yes,
I think so, which
early.
Means it's going to be hard to have beer. So everybody drink coffee. Coffee is the antidote for lack of beer.
Right.
And come and listen. I'm excited about
It's going to be fun.
Actually.
Yeah, we're part of a panel with some other really cool participants, and we're talking emergency management to libraries, which have a really cool, crucial role in emergencies.
It's actually, I've been doing legitimate, this is true.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want you to think I'm lying to you.
As everything on this podcast.
Right, everything we say is true.
Yes.
I've been doing research on library emergency response.
Oh, wow.
And there's some fascinating stuff about it. I mean, there's really, especially these sort of large libraries, but also like the Library of Alexandria, which I guess didn't end up all that well at the end of time, but for a while was really rocking it. So I'm interested in this.
Yeah, the other thing
fascinating
I discovered preparing for this was like the role libraries have in recovery, like the Sandy Hook Queens Library opening up after Hurricane Sandy. I mean, they bring normalcy back to affected communities. They have a huge role in kind of recovering from big disasters.
Spoiler. Libraries help emergencies.
Absolutely.
Because it's our session next week. So just don't give too much away.
So if you're in New York and you want to meet us, come to this conference.
All right. I've been thinking a lot about how we're different people now. Yeah, we're not the same people that we used to be.
Changed.
Back in May. So we're gonna
many months ago.
We're gonna do something a little different on the show today, which is we are gonna go through some major life crises. The kind of thing that anybody hits, that everybody's got to face in their life, or most people have to face in their life, and we're gonna talk to you about how emergency management principles can help you get through those successfully.
Yeah, I think this is good. Yeah.
And then we're gonna do the other part of it, right, which is talk about what skills you learn in sort of other kinds of jobs that you can bring to emergency management.
Right. What kind of crappy jobs we've had in the past, but looking back now we say, oh, those have prepared us for our careers in emergency management.
It's like the Forrest Gump approach to career development.
Yeah.
Or what was it, A Prayer for Owen Meany? Was that The World According to, isn't there some about the guy who's the dwarf and then he has the fate?
I don't know what
Let's leave that behind. So here are the things, the life crises that we're going to hit. We're going to hit all of them. I think they're all going to help you, so you should listen carefully. It's wedding planning. We're going to talk about moving. We're going to talk about having kids. We're going to talk about job hunting. We're going to talk about international travel. We're going to talk about confronting your own death, which is very important. And then we're going to talk about hangovers and surviving them. All right, so first up, wedding planning. So I don't know about you. I mean, our wedding planning was pretty epic, and it was very intense.
It was a very fun wedding. I went to your wedding. You did not come to my wedding.
I didn't. No, I didn't.
To be fair, you didn't know me.
That's right.
We didn't know each other at my wedding.
Well, you should have invited me.
I should have known. We should have had another wedding once we knew each other.
But I mean, it was it's this intense, it's emotional.
Yeah.
There's a lot of like stakes about what decisions, like china patterns or placemats.
Yeah, full of details, right? I mean, it's just you have to get extremely detailed in the decisions you have to make. You never have enough time. Like, you think, oh, I've got plenty of time to prepare for this, and next thing you know, it's like the day before.
Right. And that's it's time constrained. So it shares all of these things with an emergency, right? The details matter. People have a lot of stress and urgency about it. There's a firm deadline.
The other thing is problems always arise. Like, as much as you plan for that wedding, you're always going to have things that happen the day of or the day before that throw the plan into the toilet.
That's right. My wife had a 104-degree temperature during the wedding.
Yeah.
She only really remembers it as sort of a blurry haze of fever. Yeah. I think
that happened to us too. My wife got sick, and she just through sheer force of will got through the wedding. Right. And then as soon as it was over, we started our honeymoon. She was just like out of commission.
She's done. Which is, I think, similar to emergencies also.
Yeah.
So here's what I'm going to do as we go through these life crises. I'm going to try and cite some research on my side that I'm doing just for my own like amusement about that's from Enrico Quarantelli, who's a disaster sociologist I've talked about before, Tom Drabek, who's another disaster sociologist who's really contributed to the field, and this guy Russell Dimes, another guy, talking about how to do these things well.
Oh, Russell Dimebag Dimes?
Yeah, Dimebag. Yeah, no, he's the man. No. So I think the first thing for wedding planning is our classic favorite, the incident command structure.
Mitch and I are standing up saluting.
That's right, we are saluting. Absolutely. But with which finger? But with ICS, I think the thing about wedding planning that, in my experience, everybody needs a job.
And ICS stands for?
Oh, yeah, I don't know. What does it stand for?
Incident Command System.
Does it? Or it could stand for the Incident Coordination Structure.
What if we just spent the next, 45 minutes explaining ICS, like we just did, an ICS 200 course on this podcast? That's right. And then got back to the...
The ICS system is made up of two kinds of staff, general staff and command staff. And but the main thing about it is everybody's got a job, and they know what the job is. And they don't try and do other people's job. And in my experience... as things ramp up in the wedding and everybody gets stressed, what happens is, and my man Tom Drabek, Def Jam Drabek, he writes about this thing called domain clarification, which is this strategy used in emergency management where basically you talk to people and you make sure everybody understands what lane that they're working in. Mm-hmm. So like the person that's in charge of the placemats really needs to stay out of the wall hangings. Like, they should stay away from that. Let somebody else, let Aunt Edna handle the wall hangings.
She's really good at that.
No, she really has this passion for wall hangings. Yeah. That's right. And cousin Dimitri, he really likes centerpieces.
Right.
Yeah,
so he's amazing at that. He has really a natural gift. Mm-hmm. It's so funny because just like in emergencies, in wedding plannings, people don't stay in their lanes. It's not inborn in us to be given a task and do that and see it through completion. It takes work and discipline and experience to do that.
Yeah, right? Uncle Javier always wants to manage the playlist. He will not stay off the DJ table. Yeah. And it doesn't work.
It does not work. Stay in your lane, people.
The other thing that is in the research is that Quarantelli says you've got to have a well-functioning emergency operations center. You've got to have a place that all the people making decisions come together at the same time to talk it through. That means that you can't be having a conversation in the corner with a bridesmaid while this groomsman and that cousin are in the other corner, and they're both talking about different decorating tactics. They got to all come together. You've got to bring them together, and you've got to have a good climate where everybody's pretty positive to make that happen.
Yeah.
I don't know. And the other thing, here's what I noticed, is that as a spouse going through a wedding, it's really hard to let go of things, right? You want to know every song that's going to play at 11:05. You want to know what hors d'oeuvres are going to be left, and you got to let it go. Right.
You got to you want to know that everybody's having fun. Did this head out? Yeah. Are they doing it right? Mm-hmm. Is everything going smooth? And you at some point you just kind of have to let things happen and roll with the punches.
And Drabek calls that decentralized authority. that you've got to sort of let people own the things they're going to own, not get in their business too much, and trust that it's going to be a success.
For an example, the day of, we told our the people helping out with the wedding, if something goes wrong, really wrong, we don't want to know about it. Just handle the situation and don't tell us, because we want to enjoy the day, figure out how to solve the problem and go. And that worked.
That is great advice.
We empowered the other leaders to handle the situation.
Any budding incident commanders out there, you totally want to give that advice out there. Just don't tell me. If it's bad, just don't let me know.
It is funny. I know 2 emergency managers that also have side jobs doing event planning.
Oh, yeah.
Which is interesting. So I do think event or emergency management kind of prepares you for doing large-scale events, conference planning, event planning, wedding planning.
I think that especially, the other thing about wedding planning, you really need a sit rep. Like in the few days leading up to it, every day, like everybody working on it, they need a little bulleted thing of here's where everything is, and here's what's happening, and here's what's changed.
Right, yeah. We had Excel spreadsheets of this is whose responsibility it is, this is when we need to do this by. And,
right. And did you have an incident action plan? Did you have wedding objectives?
No. Thankfully, we did not have that.
We may have had that. So, I think wedding planning, if you follow those principles, laying out domains, I think it's really helpful. Emergency management, I think, really did help my wedding planning, like legit, like too legit to almost to quit, almost too legit to quit.
Right.
Okay, this next one I just survived. We barely survived this month.
Yeah, this
summer.
This is fresh.
It almost
for you.
It almost didn't happen.
And also, moving in New York City is different than any. I'm not saying it's better. I'm not saying New York City is better. It's different than moving in any other city. Yeah. I think ever to exist.
It's massively
horrible.
Expensive.
It's extremely expensive.
Yeah.
It's extremely frustrating. Not easy.
And it shares these qualities with emergencies. You're going to meet this group, if you use movers, right? You're going to meet this group of people you've never met before.
Right.
And you guys are going to be thrown together in this crazy, chaotic, 12-hour, 14-hour, 16-hour, stint. And you all have to get along, and you've got to achieve this main objective of the day, during that time.
Right. And you can't get frustrated at each other. You have to be able to get along, and you're from... Yeah, it's... a very stressful time.
I think the thing that gets me through moving is the planning P. This may be the geekiest thing that I've ever said before as an emergency manager, but because it's all about time. It's all about the fact that as you get closer to the move, you've got to not just be packing all the time, and this is the secret of the planning P. You're packing, you're loading things up, but at the same time, you've got to be planning for the next step. You've got to be laying out the next day, even while you're doing the work of the current day, or else you'll never survive the next day. So you're tired, but you've got to do both of those things at the same time, which is how the planning P works.
Right. So while you're packing, you're also thinking about the house you're moving to, and is it ready to be moved in, and do I have the key, and have I done all the paperwork, and where the mover's going to park when they get there.
Right, and you've got to have a financial wing, making sure you're worried about the money. You've got to make sure your logistics are covered in terms of personnel, and resources. Are the people going to be here on time and all that stuff?
You got to watch for burnout. You got
to watch for burnout.
You got to keep you got to keep on top of that.
That is totally right.
You got to order pizza at lunchtime.
That's right.
For the movers.
Oh yeah, that's really.
Did you not do that?
No,
did you
did.
not order them lunch?
No, we did. We got them lunch. We got them lots of drinks. It was a hot day. I mean, it was tough.
And you tipped a crazy amount, right?
I did.
That's the other thing. Did you don't do 20% of the total bill, right?
Oh my god.
Or do you?
I was.
Is it or do you do $100 a person?
I didn't know more than that.
Oh
I tipped. The tipping was exorbitant, and this is what I'm going to just confess to something. Can I just open, because I don't know if I did this right or not. I really loved our movers. I thought they were great guys. I thought they did a great job. They were all Russian dudes who were talking about how they were going to go out to Brighton Beach, and they were going to party that night.
With your tip money.
That's right, yeah. And so what I did was I got them a couple bottles of vodka to go with the tip. Well, that was the thing. I thought,
they'd rather have the cash,
I was being
right?
Stereotypical, I guess. I was Russian guy. I mean, they got cash, and I got them vodka too. And I thought, they'll think this is awesome. And they were like, we don't like vodka.
What?
No, they were anti-vodka. No, they were whiskey. They were like whiskey dudes. And I was like, oh, I'm a whiskey dude. But it was too late. I bought the vodka, and they were all like, you stereotypical, Southern.
How dare you?
That's right.
I kill you now.
Yeah, they sounded exactly like that.
That's great.
But, actually the friend of mine who I think did the best job moving was this guy was moving to Jersey, and what he did was he planned it out way ahead of time, and he had friends come over every weekend for like the 2 months before the move, and he would just take the stuff to Jersey like a van at a time. He had a storage place over there. So every weekend he would just take a group of friends in a van to Jersey. They would go, they'd have lunch over there, get some beers, and then come back, and he'd do it again the next weekend.
Wow. That sounds horrible. I want to rip the Band-Aid off, just get it done one day. You have a horrible day, you spend like 15 of your paychecks, but it's over with.
I liked it because to me that exemplified the principle of mutual aid in emergencies. He knew everybody's capability, right? Yeah. He knew who was able to help, when they were able to help. He mobilized them all, and then he paid them off. He bought us all lunch. He bought us all drinks. Yeah. And it was a fun afternoon.
I guess it's less painful when you do that. I mean, everybody kind of has.
No, I see your side of it, though. I mean, then it drags on. It keeps going. You may never actually move. You may just end up eating lunch and drinking beer all the time.
Well, speaking of dragging on and keeping going, having kids, that's another life event that I think emergency management prepares us for.
So you did this summer. Second daughter.
Second girl. Yeah, and it's, some of the same things we've mentioned, stress management, the importance of planning ahead of time. I mean, we certainly had because we live in Brooklyn and our hospital we were delivering at is in Manhattan. And so there's that right there is oh, what if it's during rush hour and she goes into labor and we go on the subway. For our first child, it was literally the hottest day of the year. And my wife couldn't catch a cab. I was stuck at work. So she took the subway in labor to the hospital. So it's even as much as you plan.
Wait, are you serious?
I'm being serious. It was 130 in the subway, and my poor wife is on the subway, and I'm trying to get to the hospital. Everything worked out fine, though.
Okay.
But, best laid plans, you have to have contingency plans for what happens if it doesn't work out.
Yeah, I think for us, it really shows. So they say that emergency management, the two core principles are preparedness and improvisation. You've got to be massively prepared. You pack your go kit for the hospital. You want to make sure you've talked through the choices. But then for us, it was the same thing. I think that when Z was born last year, we went or Jordan went it was just 3 hours from contraction to baby.
Wow.
That was all of it. And so we literally had the movie scene where her dad was driving both of us in the backseat of the car 100 miles an hour through the streets of Brooklyn, running red lights, getting to the hospital, skidding to the stop in front of the emergency room door, all of that. Boom, bang, bang. And you've got to keep the calmness in the urgency. You've got to move fast, but in emergency management, that adrenaline will get in front of your brain. So you've got to be moving fast while at the same time breathing and staying calm in the situation.
Yeah, that's the other thing is an incident commander I feel can be very scared and nervous and anxious on the inside, but for the benefit of those around you, you have to kind of exude calmness and control. And I think, thinking of your wife, our wives going through labor, you kind of have to take on the everything's going to be okay. We're going to get through this. We've talked about this. We have a great doctor. We have a great staff that's coming in. I feel your pain. I know what you're going through, but we're going to get through this. I actually didn't say that. I would have been slapped in the face. But, you have to, as an incident commander, when everything is going to pot around you, you kind of have to keep calm and carry on.
That's right. I spent a lot of time peeing in my pants, I think, really. That's a good incident commander attribute, too. Everybody should wear adult diapers just so that you don't, do any messy stuff.
The other aspect of this is communication. So, a lot of times, maybe your wife who's going through labor doesn't exactly know what's going on, not because she's out of it, but just, it's you're kind of the advocate, the kind of the go-between between the doctor and explaining to your wife what's happening, and coaching her through kind of the things that she needs to do, which is another aspect of incident command.
The other thing that Drabek brings up, what did I call him? Def Jam Drabek. I'm gonna stick with that. I like
DJ
that. That's right.
DJ Drabek.
He's always managing the playlist. He says that what you've got to do is create an in-house schoolhouse, which to me means a lot for parenting, especially in those first couple weeks. You've got to always take a time where you have a designated time where you can sort of step back and say, well, what do we need to learn? Like, what are we not doing so well on? How do we get to the next step? So even in the middle of the emergency, you've got to be sort of growing to the next level, which is hard when you're not sleeping and you're a parent and, either of you can take something wrong or get too stressed out about this or that thing, but you've got to be able to sort of learn and get to the next step.
Yeah. And one of the things we have down under this too is celebrating success.
Yeah.
And, see that as also just encouragement and encouraging the staff, encouraging the troops, encouraging your wife when things are going well. And then, celebrating at the end when it's all done.
What's, about celebrating success, because I'm one of these emergency managers that I'm always like, just push through to the end, just push through, and so I've never given that as much focus. But I was digging into the research, and it turns out when you do celebrate during responses, they actually work better. Like, it's actually a formal predictor of success when you take time to sort of celebrate it as you're going.
No, they're talking about in the middle of a response when something successful happens, when something gets accomplished, celebrating that moment right then? Or are they saying at the end of it? It's celebrating the entire...
The data's on both. It's responses that you celebrate at the end were usually better, but also because the thing is people get so demoralized. It's the same kind of thing. Like if you're at home with a baby for weeks and weeks and weeks and you're not sleeping and you get, you've got to find some win to sort of celebrate to show that, we're all in this and as a way of marking that we'll get through it.
That's great.
I want to highlight one other thing about kids, which is Quarantelli makes this distinction between problems that are caused by the incident and problems that are caused by the emergency response itself. So in an emergency, if there's a hurricane, the problems caused by the flood are caused by the incident, but the problems of managing staff and managing volunteers are problems that are created by the fact that you're responding. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And so I feel like when you're having kids, it's really important with your spouse to make this distinction between things that are real problems that are caused by the situation, or even problems caused by your schedules or caused by parenting, and then the problems that are just there by nature of what you're doing.
Right.
Because sometimes I think people blame each other for those problems, whether it's money or time or whatever, that are just inherent and they're nobody's fault, So you've got to be able to sort of separate those two issues out. Job hunting!
Dun, dun, dun.
If there's one thing we've gotten more, I think, questions on than anything else so far, it's been about finding a job.
I thought you were going to say, if there's anything we have more experience in, it's looking for jobs.
That's right. We've spent so much of our lives trying to find...
Just constantly.
Actually,
I spend 9 hours a day looking for jobs.
If there's a listener out there who has a job, if you could just offer one to either one of us, we would really appreciate that.
Preferably tomorrow we get fired. We both get fired tomorrow.
Oh,
it is a Friday.
That is 4 p.m. Do you ever get those twinges have you ever been laid off?
No.
I've been laid off, and it's like this really painful, embarrassing experience. I remember I got a phone call and it was I finished a job. I'm going to tell the story. I'm going to lie back on the couch, pretend you're my psychotherapist, because you're going to support me through it, right?
Yes.
And
thankfully, we have a fainting couch here.
Oh, thank God. I always travel with a fainting couch.
Yes.
And so I just had finished this project, or I'd almost finished it, and I was a web developer at the time. And I called my boss, and I was like, I think I finished this project. And he was like, so we need to talk.
Oh, as soon as your boss says, so we need to talk. It's like when your girlfriend says, so we need to talk. You're like, nothing good is going to come from this.
I don't know which one is worse. It's worse, I guess, when your girlfriend is your boss. That's the worst possible time that could happen. And I was in the car. I remember it really vividly. I went in, he was like, so we're letting you go. And I was like, when? And he was like, right now.
As we speak.
And I was like, what about my stuff? I was like, and he was literally like, you're going to be escorted to the desk.
That's crazy. You had an escort out situation?
We're going to watch you pack your things up. We're going to escort you to your car. That is
so crazy.
No, it was really,
because I've heard stories of people being escorted out. You're not allowed to do anything. That's insane.
Well, in my case, I'd been stealing money from the firm for the 2 months before. So it makes a lot of sense. But for me, once I did that, there was such a sense of shame.
Oh,
you know what I mean? And I think that when you're job hunting, you sort of have that. I think you have the sense that failure is right there with you all the time.
Yeah, it's tough.
and it's hard to overcome. And I was thinking, in an emergency, because this happens to me in emergencies sometimes too, is that you reach this point of stress where you have performance shame. Like I'm not worried to admit that. I'll stand up in front of everybody and say, you're 7 days into an emergency, you're exhausted, you haven't slept, you're not achieving your objectives. You start to feel that it's like personal in some way, that somebody else in the seat could have done better.
Right, like something's wrong with me. I can't. This isn't going
right. Why can't I get this sit rep out? Why can't I? And I think that when I was job hunting, the two things that really helped in that regard were what Quarantelli refers to as overall organizational coordination, which is knowing you're not like a lone entity, that there are groups you can coordinate with, that there are networks you can do, whether it's online boards or, like calling Dukes of Hazzards and giving us, like questions or tips or something. Right. That kind of, so that you build a network. Like I think building a network is like the number one important thing that you should do, whether it's in an emergency or you're doing job hunting yourself. And then the other thing is finding other people in your situation that you can plan with. So in an emergency, what happens is there's always like some random day 2, somebody is like, we've got to build this magnificent widget that does like X widgety things in 6 hours. It's like that kind of thing. And you've got to pull together 6 or 7 people with different skill sets to build the widget with no prior planning or training. And I think when you're job hunting, that's a great approach, actually. Find other people that are in similar situations that have different skill sets and get together and try to produce something. Maybe it's a website or a new kind of resume or a video or something that you can show off.
Yeah, or a podcast.
Absolutely. Just going back to give us jobs if you have them. And the third thing, which is the Quarantelli thing, is feeding the mass communication system. Like it's not enough to just write your resume or put it out there anymore. There's no chance that you'll be able to read anything. You've got to send it out to people you know personally. You've got to do something like make a video, make a podcast that you can distribute, tweet.
Yeah. And, like a response, you have to be very organized to do job hunting right and to do emergency response right. You have to document the jobs you've applied for. You have to document, your past work experience in detail, but not too much detail.
Yeah.
You have to keep track of who you've talked to, who you've had informational interviews with. Have you sent them thank you notes? So the organization required to run a response is not dissimilar to the organization you should put into serious job hunting.
That's totally, and I've been on both sides of that. I remember when I was job hunting, I sent an email to a person, I don't know, telling them how great I was or whatever.
Sure.
And then 7 months later, I wrote the same email to the same person, and I didn't make the connection.
Oh, no.
And then I've been on the other side where I've gotten that email, and then it's like 7 or 8 months, I've gotten another similar email that didn't tag back to it, and I was like, loser, So you really have to track that. Here's the people I've talked to about what things. That's great.
Side question, since you've, in your position where you hire people, how often do you receive handwritten thank you notes? Or is it all email right now? Email thank you notes?
What's funny?
When's the last time you received a handwritten?
2 weeks ago.
What?
Yeah.
People still do that.
Wow. But it was like I've gotten
and was that like
I've gotten
good?
3 of them, and what's funny is they have no bearing on any hiring decisions.
Really?
Yeah. Because,
not even like subconsciously. You're like, this guy.
The thing is, I get them, and I'm kind of like, this is awesome. You know what I mean?
How'd they get my address?
No, right. Why is it in cut up newspaper letters?
What's this white powdery substance that falls out of the...
Oh my God. But the thing is that it never is going to sway me as much as like the interview. Like I'm a tough interviewer. Like I have a reputation maybe as a person that asks really difficult. So here are I'll just give you this job hunting.
Okay.
These are my favorite questions to ask in an interview.
Okay.
And after I say them on this podcast,
should we role play? Should I be the like?
Yeah, let's do that. Let's do that.
Okay.
All right.
Hi, Mr. Stribling. I just graduated grad school.
Well, Mr. McMahon, I'd like to just ask you about some, and I'm never going to ask boring questions about like qualifications or whatever. Here's what I'm going to ask you. I'm going to first say, well, tell me what your 3 biggest strengths and your 3 biggest weaknesses are. That's like my opening question.
Do you really ask that?
Yeah.
See, I thought you weren't supposed to ask that anymore because people have those canned and ready to go.
But here's the thing. In my experience, they never do. But actually, here's what you're supposed to ask.
And you make him say 3 weaknesses?
I don't. Here's what I say. I actually say the 3 specific behaviors that you practice that will bring you success in this job, and the 3 behaviors that you're working on to try to improve. Because I'm trying to get them to cite specific things that they've done in past jobs, and not like hypothetical magical things.
You don't want them to be like, oh, I work too hard. That's really my weakness.
That's right. And
I care too much about this position.
People have totally told me that.
Oh, of course.
I love it so much. Then what I say is this. I love this question. I think I really want your answer to this question. Okay. All right. So when you work in emergency management, you have to deal with failure because emergencies, you always fail.
I've never had to deal with that.
I know no failure. And so I say, so I want you to tell me what your biggest professional failure is, and then what you learned from that.
Yeah, that's good.
I know, right? You're not going to tell me.
I don't think I can tell you without divulging specifics of the job, which we decided not to talk about on this podcast. But that's a really good question. Mm-hmm. So I love interview questions that force the interviewee to talk specifics, because it is easy to BS, I feel like, in this industry, and to kind of talk in general. And maybe that's every industry, but certainly it is. So any questions that get down to the specifics of give me specific examples, how would you do this? Walk me through your process for thinking through this problem. Those are great.
I'm gonna give you one more.
Okay.
Just because I think this is a great question too.
Yep.
Really high on my own interview question. So imagine that in 4 days, the city of New York is going to be incinerated by fire from space.
Okay.
And so you are the mayor of New York City.
Okay.
And you have learned that the city of New York will be incinerated in 4 days.
In 4 days.
Yes. Walk me through your action plan.
All right. Well, action plan, step number 1 would be notification. I think I would say, hey, guys, listen up here. Take a knee. City of New York. There's going to be some bad stuff going down in 4 days. We got to get out of the city. We need to evacuate right now. And this is how we're going to do it. And I would lay out those steps.
That's really this is the Friday Night Lights approach.
It's just the city, right?
It's just a game plan.
It's just the city limits.
That's the exercise. It's just to the edge of the city.
Limits.
If you step into New Jersey,
Westchester,
you will be safe. Westchester, Long Island, immediately you will be safe.
Okay, so I think we could do that. I think we could evacuate 8 million New Yorkers in 4 days. And we would be clear in our messaging. You have to get out of the city. Do not take your backpack. Do not take suitcases. Leave the city right now. This is where the buses are going to be lined up to take you out. They're going to be on loops until 6 hours before 4 days, and then they're going to stop running.
Damn,
you have to get out.
All right,
and we just stop. Start. It's like a hurricane evacuation. You start. You choose your kind of 0 hour, and you start working back from that.
Done.
Hired? Am I hired?
That's the best answer that I've gotten. Rotating buses right up and then a clear stop line. That was really good.
What can I ask what the worst answer you give? You can't really say, right?
Well, I can tell you this, because I've asked this question literally to probably dozens of people, a lot of people. The worst answer was a person just refused to answer.
Oh no.
They were like, that's a crazy question.
Oh,
and I was we're an emergency management shop. I mean, I admittedly, I don't think fire from, I don't even know what I said. And I mean, it's not, that's a crazy scenario, but this kind of worst case thinking, I think, is important. And being able to translate that sort of craziness into practical action steps is what the whole job is about.
So let me ask you this interview question.
Okay.
How many piano tuners are there in the world?
So that is an Enrico Fermi question.
Oh man, you know this one.
Have I never told you about this question?
No.
This is what I asked this question in interviews too.
Oh man.
Did you steal this from me, or did you get it in? Did I steal it from you?
No, I didn't.
So I asked this question too. This is a great question. I love this question.
So why is this a good question?
Okay, so the thing about this question is because people also panic on this question, and they panic because they want some answer. And the thing about emergency management is, there's never a right answer, right?
Every disaster is different.
Right. You're going to have to improv, and you've got to have confidence enough to make an educated guess and kind of run with it.
Right.
So Enrico Fermi was...
And I would say make an educated guess, but then revise that answer, that educated guess, as you get more information.
Absolutely.
Right?
And so Fermi was trying to do it to test estimation. So people usually fail at this question in one of three ways. They won't answer because they're just too afraid to get it wrong. They freeze up. They're like, I don't know. 2, they try and actually get it right. Like they go into sort of like calculator mode. Or 3, there are people that get stuck in this loop of only saying sort of like steps they would take if they had access to information. Like first I would get out the phone book and I would look up all the piano tuners and then I would count them. You know what I mean? Or first I would get a record of every piano sold, and that's not how emergencies work. Like you're never going to have that data. Right. So what I want somebody to say, all right, the city of New York has 8.5 million people in it. Or you said the world. The world has, good God, the world has 7 billion people in it. And then,
let's just say America.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Great. Well, that's America. Easier. That's
so nice. I've already made it easier for you.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you so much. America has 300 million people in it, and of those 300 million people, like 4% of them are in a socioeconomic class that might have pianos, and there are like institutions, concert halls, colleges that also have pianos. So you have to estimate the number of pianos, and then you have to think, okay, well, if I'm a piano tuner, let's just. I have no idea the reality of this. It takes me 4 hours to tune a piano, and every piano needs to be tuned twice a year, something like that. And that gives me an estimate. So I have both a rate estimate and I have like a denominator estimate. And then you can work through. One guy, and I wish I could say his name on this podcast because I think it was he's the only guy that ever asked that question to. Yeah. And he was like, I'm going to tell you. And then he literally went through this exercise in his brain, and he had such a store of knowledge that I totally believed his estimate.
My gosh. Did you ever have anyone that was like 22? There are 22 piano tuners. Like immediately were like 45.
I had 150. Somebody was like 150. And I was like, I don't know. Maybe.
Could they walk you through how they came up with that number, or was it just like...
that was their opener. Yeah. And then so we worked through it a little bit after that. Wow, I had no idea that was going to be fruitful. I feel like we just talked for like 4 hours about interview questions.
We have 0 listeners.
And now I can't ever use any of those questions again. But I mean, I think, just to sum up, there's a lot you can use from emergency management in job hunting.
Yeah, so another area that I think emergency management really helps you in is international travel, especially to developing countries or maybe unsafe areas. I mean, there's a lot of emergency management principles that can come in handy here. One, situational awareness, understanding what you're coming into, doing research into okay, what's the situation on the ground? What are some hot points I should avoid? What do I need to take? What do I need to be careful of? Reporting frequently to those back at home. Letting them know that you're safe, that everything's going to be fine. And then kind of mention this, but contingency planning. Okay, if X happens once I get there, what is my plan to get out? I mean, go ahead.
Well, no, talking about wedding planning, when I went on my honeymoon to Hawaii, I got there, awesome time, so excited to be there, climbed a tree, lost my wallet. I was there half an hour, lost my wallet with my driver's license. So we spent a day of our honeymoon driving to this police station at the farthest end of the big island of Hawaii, like the very farthest end, trying to get like a paper to sign so I could get back on an airplane at the end of it.
Oh my gosh.
And then we got to the airport to fly back out, and the airport had a major power failure. Their generators had failed. They had no power, and so they weren't letting the airplanes off because although the airplanes could fly, they couldn't process people through the metal detectors. And so, but because I didn't have a driver's license, the line was like 4 hours because of this thing. They had to put in a special call to Homeland Security, so they pushed me all the way to the front of the line, and we got to go like straight onto the airplane when the power came back on.
Nice.
Ultimate contingency plan.
That's awesome. It worked out. The other thing about international travel is like giving you an enhanced awareness of cultural differences, which I think has really benefited me in my job, even though my job is totally domestic emergency preparedness now, but you work with different cultures, especially in large metropolitan areas. And, living long-term, surviving in a developing country that is a culture that's primarily not your own. I mean, it teaches you great skills to negotiate, to listen, to see things from a different side. All those areas are, vitally important to emergency managers.
And this is another one of those things that, people talk about this and they think that this is maybe like an extra added attraction. Like, it's not that important, but if you can understand cultural differences, then it's great.
Yeah.
But it turns out that this is one of the major strategies that DJ Drabek says that really affect success in emergency management. If you are an emergency manager that understands different cultures and can do that listening, you're much more likely to be successful.
Yeah, and it's not even necessarily different ethnic cultures.
Right.
It's different office cultures.
Right.
It's the planners talking to the operations, talking to the finance guy. It's seeing things from those different perspectives when you're trying to pull together a plan. That's important.
That's right. I mean, one of the things I've most respected some of the executives I worked for have been this ability to sort of put on the hat of other folks, just to be able to say, to assume different perspectives in an urgent situation when you're under adrenaline, to sort of stop thinking through your eyes and think through somebody else's eyes. And that kind of tactical shift is really important in achieving the things you're trying to do in a response.
Same song?
I use that twice in a row.
It's all right. It's a good one.
I'm really... You know why? It's because I keep trying to manage the playlist. Oh, yeah, I added this one. So, Andrew, I think it's time...
Let's be real. Real talk.
We need to bring this down. We need to talk about our own death.
Mm.
And I think as emergency managers, we face death. Steely-eyed. We just like Jon Snow facing the White Walkers.
That's right.
We just look it in the eye and... we bring it down.
And we say, "Come on, Death, give me your worst. Come on, Death." That's how I say.
Is that really how you say it? No, that
throws them off.
You got to be yourself. You got to bring all of yourself to the party. But I mean, I think, you know what? Here's why I put this in. I think people don't spend a lot of time thinking about the fact that they're gonna die.
Right.
Maybe I do. Every day I wake up and I think, well, Mitch, you're going to die. But, I don't think
today could be the day.
That's right. It really could be. 12-hour operational shifts. But, I mean, I do think that part of the emergency management principle and I really sort of can't believe I'm going there, but of risk assessment helps you have these discussions that are, like, practical about, you have to think, all right, I'm, like a 40-year-old dude, and I have these sort of health issues, and my life expectancy is probably this, and you've got to sort of be able to objectively think, well, my HVA says,
right.
That I've probably got this many years, and I've got to make a good use of them.
Yeah, I think that's right. And it also, again, preparedness and planning. It helps you plan for the future generations of what happens when you're no longer here.
That's right.
Get that will in order.
That's right. Plan for future generations.
I promise I will not pull the plug on you, Mitch. Unless you want me to, and then I'll do it.
Yeah, could you just follow my living well?
Okay, I guess we'll see.
You know what?
See what you leave me.
I live across the street from Greenwood Cemetery now, so maybe that's. So I've been thinking about mortality. So the crowd in my window are like acres and acres of gravestones. So I just basically want a monument, is what I'm saying. So if you could get me a monument,
perfect.
That'd be great.
Done. So, so the other thing we wanted to talk about for this is non-emergency management jobs that we've had that have prepared us for emergency our roles, our careers in emergency management.
Yes.
So, one of the things I thought of was painting. I painted all through high school and part of college, and I was thinking about, like, how does painting prepare you from emergency management? And a couple of things. Attention to detail. Painting, it's not just throwing paint on the walls. You have to you're in the corners, you're up in the ceilings, you're paying a ton of attention to colors and lines, and so that attention to detail is important in later in jobs. The other major point is the disproportionate time you spend in preparing to paint.
Yeah.
Like, the actual painting part of a big job is a very small part. Like 85% of it is cleaning, sanding, scrubbing, taping, throwing down paper, throwing down chart, and then the painting is like the very last.
Yeah,
bit.
see, I never did any of those things. It was probably why I never was a successful painter.
Yes.
Really, not as a career. I never really got the whole preparation for painting thing.
Yeah, it's a lot, but the better you prepare, the easier it is, and the better the end job, and that's certainly an aspect to emergency planning, right? You don't want to the first time you do something, you don't want it to be during an emergency. So the more you plan, the better you will be able to do that job.
Did you paint mostly like interiors, exteriors? What were you?
Both. We did both. Yeah.
Oh wow.
Yeah, it was a pretty serious crew.
No,
so.
You should show. You should have guns from that. Do you have like
The
Ralph Macchio and the Karate Kid before you? You house painted your way to success.
Right. Yeah, I never translated into karate. I probably should have done that. Maybe I don't know. Maybe I have. Try to punch me.
No.
Try to punch me right in the face.
Oh no, that hurt my fist.
Work.
Oh, my fist.
Did not
just
work. Face.
No, this is your second example here. Actually, is my favorite example of how you're going to bring. I don't even know how you're going to bring this to emergency management, but I want you to just tell us the story.
Yeah. So I think we've already alluded to our Christian fundamental Christian love for Christian rock.
Yes.
But it's part of that phase in college. I worked in a junior high youth group. So I had to teach junior high boys Bible. And so that involved having a Bible study with junior high kids. So if you can control junior high boys and teach them Bible, I think you can facilitate any sort of emergency planning meeting.
Oh, wow.
But it really did. I mean, you have to get their attention. You have to present interesting information.
Mm-hmm.
You have to listen to them. You have to give them time for them to talk and discover things about it. You have to keep them engaged. And those are all aspects of running a successful meeting in whatever industry, really.
I remember when I used to work in Florida, Craig Fugate was the head of emergency management, and he used to have a sign in the EOC that said something like, it was like, check your ego at the door. Like once you come in here, you've got to put that ego aside. And I think for junior high boys in particular, that would be almost impossible. Yeah. So, I mean, I think that's kind of amazing.
Junior high was a good age because they're still young, especially junior high boys are still young enough that they're like still kind of like young and dumb and like to have fun.
Right.
And they don't have the attitude of high schoolers where they know it all. So it was kind of fun in that regard. But it's funny, some of the same issues that come out as adult in like rough meetings, like maybe one person dominating the conversation or someone not listening, those things happened like back in junior high church. You start figuring out how to deal with that then you'll do a lot better job.
My daughter just started high school, and because she'll never listen to this podcast, I'm going to tell you that right. she was like what is wrong with high school boys? And I was like, they're like 4 years developmentally behind you. They're still like struggling to understand puberty.
Right. They think tripping girls is cool and they'll like them.
Oh yeah.
The boys if they trip the girls.
That's not a thing.
Anymore?
Not a thing we can do.
No,
I guess not. Yeah. For me, I started out doing computer programming. And it was the same thing about kind of attention to detail and also this visual element. You had to use kind of both sides of your brain.
Yeah.
And I think that and the strategic work in that, like you have to plan out if you're going to build an application or something, you've got to be able to plan it out really well first, and you've got to be able to see the end product. But then while you're building it, you've got to improvise. You've got to change directions. And I think that was really important. But my fundamental employment experience, the thing that's taught me the most about life and everything that I've done, is when I worked for Blockbuster.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
Blockbuster Video.
Right.
Do you still have the shirt?
I have the khakis.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, I actually I remember I wore the khakis and the shirt to like my high school graduation rehearsal or something because I was like working and I didn't have time to change clothes, and so everybody else was in robes and I was wearing my Blockbuster uniform.
Name tag.
And I remember working there, and it was first of all, I took the job because I got a free movie rental a week. That was like why I was like, I could work for Burger King and I could work for Blockbuster, but if I work at Blockbuster, I get a free movie every week.
Oh my gosh.
And I just hated it so much. And I remember.
What did you hate about it? Was it
So I had him. I was the guy in the front at the cash register.
Okay.
And there would be like a line of 5 people, and then I would have a manager who's like in the back room, and the people would be mad at me for. I don't know why, because their movies they rewound them with a pencil, or I don't even remember video cassettes. I don't even remember what these things were like. But they would bring them back, or maybe it was DVDs. I don't know how old I am anymore. I don't know what kind of technology. But anyway, there would be a line of people and they'd be angry. And the manager would come out and he would be like, he was so angry at me for smiling at them. He was like, stop smiling at the freaking customers and like tell them to,
Oh, he'd want you to fight back with them?
He wanted me to fight back with the customers.
Oh my gosh.
And
no wonder they went under.
They're just trying to rent movies. Like, why am I the guy that's got to tell them they're living their life wrong or something? And it was just such a sad environment. It was like they all knew that in 10 years that online video would come and destroy them all. Like they all saw it coming and you could smell it in the air. And
so what did that teach you about emergency management?
I think really it taught me to deal with like the failure question. It really taught me to deal with this. You're in an environment where nobody thinks they're going to succeed. and what is that like? You know?
How am I going to handle that?
That's right. And it also let me work through basically every disaster movie ever made to that time. And
that's good.
And that was really helpful. Charlton Heston really can teach you a lot as an emergency manager about how to live.
Yeah. And also like dealing with angry customers, whether that's your citizens of your town or whether it's people that you're working with that are tired and frustrated and don't understand what's happening. I mean, that's stuff we have to do as emergency managers, surely.
Yeah, and it's actually interesting that you say that because DJ Drabek, it turns out, says that one of the major success strategies for emergency management is to be able to keep a customer feedback mentality, to know that at the end, because sometimes when you're an emergency manager, you're trapped in this EOC. You've just got computer monitors around you. There are no actual people, and you're making these abstract decisions.
Yeah.
And you have to remember that on the other end of these computer screens or phones or whatever are people with real problems, and they're asking for help. And you've got to try and listen to those requests and really serve them, and not get caught up in all the BS that's just happening in the EOC.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I mean, that's also why it's important for people who are working in the EOC to get out to the field during the response. I mean, it's so hard to do that. It's especially when you've got good people working in the EOC. You kind of need to keep them there to keep it running, but it's very important for them to see kind of the downstream effects of the decisions they're making. It's hard to do, though.
So I think that's bringing us to the end.
I think that's it, yeah.
And
Welcome
the end
back.
of our lives. Not just the end of our
Oh my, he's got a gun!
I'm really sad. The other crisis we were going to talk about is having a hangover and what emergency management can help you with that. But I actually think there's no help for it. If you have an hangover, you're stuck with it. We can't help you. I'm sorry.
Deal with it. Drink water.
Hair of the dog. So we have a phone number now.
Yeah, we have a special thing we're doing. We have a Google Voice number that you can call and ask us questions. You can give us comments. You can tell us about jobs that you've had that have prepared you for emergency management. You can tell us about real life instances that emergency management has helped you with. Really anything you can call. You can cuss us out.
You can ask us about your death and advice that you have for us about
We'll
ours.
give you death advice. You can give us Christian contemporary music recommendations.
Oh, yeah, playlist requests. We're always trying to manage our playlist better. So, anything you want to give us.
Right. So call this number, 859-429-2731. Leave us a short, sweet message, and we will play it on the next episode. Or we'll read it if it's long and rambling.
Leave us a long and rambling message.
Or we will not listen to it and delete it immediately.
Yeah.
No, we, call, ask us questions, and we'll answer those questions.
And don't forget the Special Librarians Conference.
Yeah, it's going to be great. If you live in the area and want to come to it, registration is open right now, and there's still space available. So,
and then we'll put the link on our website.
We'll put it on the website, but you can also Google Special Libraries Association Conference.
It turns out, I think librarians, much more exciting crowd than you think they're going to be.
They are. They're awesome. They're so cool. They're so much cooler than us.
I know. And these are special librarians, right?
Jeez.
No, I'm a little intimidated.
Nervous
yeah,
now.
I don't know what we're going to do. So if you have advice for us about how we can, better handle our librarian experience, we would totally, appreciate that too.
Call and leave us a note. That number again is 859-429-2731. Don't forget also to follow us on Twitter, Hazards Podcast.
And it's good to be back.
It's good to be back. See you next time.
Bye. There was a music cue. I'm fading it up though. I'm just gonna fade it up. There we go.
DJ Stripling.
Oh yeah! Shout out to my man Drabek.
It's weird that you have turntables for all this music. It's a little overkill.
It's all on vinyl too. It's all
These are all
on
vinyl
vinyl.
records.